Welcome to a Legendarium special about when Halloween involved stealing gates and setting fires. Halloween is among the oldest traditions on Earth, as it touches on a key part of the human condition, namely the relationship between the living and the dead. The observance evolved from ancient rituals marking the transition from summer to winter, a time when people believed that spirits roamed the earth. Before Halloween became linked to costumes and candy, it centered on vandalism and violence. In Ireland, boys carved spooky faces into turnips to frighten unwary travelers. They also tied strings to cabbages and pulled them through fields and across roads to frighten people. Scots had one especially obnoxious prank where they pulled up a cabbage stalk, got it smoking, and then shoved it up to a keyhole. When the homeowner came home, they would find their house filled with a noxious-smelling vapor. When immigrants from Scotland and Ireland brought their traditions to the United States during the mid-1800s, they celebrated as they did back in their homelands with brutal pranks. At first, the pranking remained harmless. However, as cities expanded, that changed. By the late 1800s, Halloween tricks included placing farmers' wagons and livestock on barn roofs, uprooting vegetables in gardens, and tipping over outhouses, be they occupied or not. Boys took so many gates off their hinges that October 31st became known as Gate Night, to the sorrow of farmers whose livestock wandered off during the night. A teetotaling minister in Steubenville, Ohio, awoke after one Halloween night to discover his porch decorated with beer signs and pyramids of beer kegs. The most violent boys ran through city streets, splattering people with bags of flour or black stockings filled with ashes. One year, youths in Kansas City waxed streetcar tracks on a steep hill, causing a vehicle to crash and injuring a conductor. In time, the newspapers began condemning the Halloween havoc. For example, the Cook County Herald wrote, "Most everybody enjoys a joke or fun to a proper degree on suitable occasions, but when property is damaged or destroyed, it is time to call a halt. We would advise the public to load their muskets or cannon with rock, salt, or bird shot, and when trespassers invade your premises at unseemly hours upon mischief bent, pepper them good and proper, so they will be effectually cured and have no further taste for such tricks." Some Americans did indeed take up arms against the Halloween pranksters, sometimes with fatal consequences. When troublemakers in Tucson, Arizona stretched a wire across a sidewalk to trip passersby in 1907, one pedestrian flung to the ground, drew a revolver, and shot dead one of the jokesters. The advent of the automobile meant further opportunities for mischief. These included removing manhole covers from the streets, deflating tires, and putting up fake detour signs to confuse motorists. In the village of Hiawatha, Kansas, during Halloween 1913, a woman named Elizabeth Krebs organized a party for the young people. She hoped the party would tire them out enough that they would have no energy for destruction. Unfortunately, she underestimated their determination, and the children ruined her garden like always. In 1914, she involved the entire town, brought in a band, held a costume contest, and put on a parade. This time, her plan worked. People of all ages enjoyed a festive rather than disruptive Halloween. News of her success traveled outside Kansas to other states which adopted Halloween parties. Unfortunately, Halloween rampages grew worse again during the economic freefall of the Great Depression. During the 1930s, civil and religious leaders, community groups, and neighborhood families began to plan Halloween parties, carnivals, and costume parades to keep kids out of trouble. With the United States mired in the Great Depression, people pooled money and staged house-to-house parties. The first house might give out costumes such as a white sheet to be ghosts or soot to smudge on kids' faces. The next house gave out treats. The next might have a basement set up as a tiny haunted house. This started to morph into kids getting dressed up and going house to house trick-or-treating. During World War II, youngsters took pledges to support the soldiers and sailors abroad by not engaging in Halloween havoc. Children in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, for example, vowed to back our fighting men by observing Halloween as they would want me to. I will share in good, clean fun and merriment, and fight against waste and damage. By the 1950s, the holiday's violent roots had largely withered, replaced with the spooky costumes and trick-or-treating that we know today. Yet, the anarchic tradition of the holiday did not vanish completely. October 30th still included the trick part of trick-or-treat in the holiday, which became known as Mischief Night. Vandalism became harmless, involving things like soaping windows, spraying shaving cream, throwing eggs at houses, or tossing toilet paper over trees and bushes. However, it took a truly dark turn in Michigan cities like Saginaw, Flint, and most famously Detroit, which went up in flames on what became known as Devil's Night. During the 1970s and 1980s, arsonists turned the Detroit night sky a Halloween orange by setting fire to trash cans, dumpsters, and abandoned buildings. The destruction peaked in 1984 when more than 800 fires erupted across Detroit in a 3-night arson spree. Detroit responded with dawn-to-dusk curfews for unaccompanied youths under 18 and mobilizing a city watch. With garden hoses at the ready, more than 30,000 volunteers joined neighborhood patrols in 1990. Thanks to these efforts, Halloween fires in Detroit have steadily decreased on what city leaders now call Angels' Night. Yet the dark legacy of Devil's Night lives on in the 1994 film The Crow, in which the hero is turned into an undead avenger by dying in a Devil's Night fire. That wraps things up for this episode of The Legendarium. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, press like. If you want to see more, press subscribe. And if you've got anything to say, let me know in the comments section. Thanks again for joining me, and I hope that you have a great rest of the day.